We could see the panic from a distance, frightening, familiar.
Breaking story today, a shooting at a high school in Littleton, Colorado.
There's an active shooter situation in South Florida.
In another American school.
Does he know where the shooter is? We don't know, but we're entering the building.
It's devastating. I'm sick to my stomach. We have multiple casualties.
John 911, what's the location of the emergency?
Sandy Hook School. I think there's somebody shooting in here. Sandy Hook School.
Father's grief, a mother's silent anguish. A young, boisterous family with 5 little girls, now shattered.
They're still surrounding, they're still shooting. Sandy Hook School, please.
Newtown, Connecticut, the site today of a mass shooting, and this time, gunfire aimed at elementary school children.
My name is Nicole Melchiono, and I'm 18.
My name is Serena Arokiam.
I'm from Sandy Hook, Connecticut.
I am from Sandy Hook, Connecticut, and I've lived there for 16 and a half years of my life.
When I was little, I had a lot of anxiety and sleeping issues after the shooting, and I went to therapy after the shooting, and then around middle school and in between middle school and high school, I didn't really have that many issues, and then junior year, senior year, I had a lot of anxiety again. That a lot of it came from recent shootings around the world or around the country that I had just seen on the news that would just make me anxious. And then I started doing a lot of activism work end of junior year and through senior year.
So December 14th, 2012, so that was when Sandy Hook happened, and I was in second grade at the time, and that really impacted me because I lost my childhood, and not only that, I lost one of my favorite teachers. Her name was Miss Soto, and she was actually my first grade teacher the year before, and so she really meant a lot to me, and to find out that she passed away during that was really heartbreaking for me. But yeah, going through Sandy Hook was a tough time for me because I was only 7 at the time, and just to kind of grasp what happened to me, I had to grow up faster than most of my other peers and friends and kids my age, just to understand that I went through a school shooting and that it's not part of a normal childhood and growing up.
I think that it definitely makes you more cautious, not even just in school, but in any public area. I think going through something like that, you definitely are more on edge most of the time, and you always have that what if thought. But I also think that even if you haven't gone through something like that firsthand, just watching it go on so often, you also can be very cautious of the worst, and always just have that in mind when you're in school or in a grocery store or anywhere.
One of the big issues that came along with it and that impacted me was especially my college decisions. I was safety is my top priority, and campus size as well. Just like my day-to-day life, kind of just being really aware of like my surroundings, and like I have heightened anxiety and my PTSD is also triggered, especially when I first got here. My PTSD and anxiety was really heightened, and my fight or flight mode was on all the time. And I didn't realize that until I really started like experiencing like different symptoms and stuff like that. And so I had to start speaking to a counselor on campus here and a psychologist that's like up the street from my school. So.
I definitely felt safe in school before. I mean, I was really young. I don't really remember like every single day of like first and second grade. I remember the day of the shooting, but I do remember after, especially going back to school was hard. And I think I was really like anxious in school, especially that it would like happen again through like, I would say like read age, like 5th and 6th grade. And then it kind of like, I felt like more safe again after that. And then like, high school was a bit rough for me, especially like with anxiety, but I do think that like going through something like that definitely makes it like harder to go to school every single day and like feel safe.
Definitely impacted like safety wise, that like anyone could step on campus no matter what, no matter if it's a public or private school. And just that like we live in a country where the number one killer of children and young adults are guns, and it's not automobile accidents, and it's not cancer. And it's kind of like heartbreaking to see that, and just to know that people will choose other things over kids' lives, and just to see that happening only pretty much in the United States is just really sad.
Before, like you said, like who am I gonna hang out with today at school? And then like after, I especially remember like going back to school after the shooting, it was just like any loud noise, I was like, oh my God, it's happening again. Like just the thought of, because I feel like at that age it was also different because we were so young that we like didn't really know the like severity of it and like the way that it was like it was national news. But like before, I think it hadn't even like crossed our mind because like who would talk about that with like an 8-year-old? But like after, since like we had been through something like that, it was definitely like always on my mind.
So before, I did feel safe because I wasn't born for Columbine, of course. So like I kind of didn't really know about it at first, and my parents did and my sister, but I wasn't really aware of like school shootings happening and like different massacres happening because I was a child. I was only 7 when it happened. And once Sandy Hook happened, like that kind of changed my perspective of living in America and just like the school system and like the government. And I had to grow up in order to understand that like this is happening, and that no one is safe in school. If it can happen in Newtown, Connecticut, it can happen anywhere else. And no one really thought that at first because they're like, oh yeah, it's gonna happen once in a blue moon. But I'm like, if it can happen in Newtown, it can happen anywhere, no matter what.
Gun violence is the number one killer of children in America, which is definitely different than any other country. And I think even at a young age now, going through active shooter drills at school, I think students are just prepared that this is like inevitably going to happen to them. And I think that that just sends fear across to everyone compared to international students where, there's one shooting and then there's immediately action taken to prevent it in the future. And I think there's a lot of excuses here, especially within politics, that prevent us from getting anywhere in Congress. And I think students here, whether they've experienced gun violence firsthand or someone they know have experienced gun violence firsthand, I think we've all been victimized by it because we've all been exposed to it in some way. And I think that sends a lot more fear into our communities than in other areas. I know that in other countries, they just don't deal with this, even though there's a lot of people saying that it's because of mental health, but we know that there's mental health issues in every country, but it's just the way we deal with firearm regulation. So I think if we can make progress there, that we would feel safer in schools like people in other countries.
I think students who are affected differently living here than as international students is that one thing is safety as well. It's probably not as heightened, but over here it's definitely heightened, and the levels of anxiety, depression, PTSD are also increased over here than where international students are located. And I think that's important to know because I know in one of the countries overseas there was a shooting that happened and they immediately banned guns from being used. And I wish we could follow those footsteps, but we live in a country where everyone has different ideas and beliefs, and so it's kind of hard to incorporate everyone's at the same time. But it's still humans and people deserve to live rather than being killed over just because of an assault weapon and going to the store or school. And I think school is important for kids to learn and get their education, but when we live in a country where we have kids being murdered and who are innocent, it's kind of hard to grasp that we're accepting it kind of and just not acknowledging that we do have a problem, and we do, and it needs to be sorted out and it needs to be fixed, definitely.